Welcome to part 1 of my tutorial, where today I'm going to show you how to make this card. Good morning, my name is Jo and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator. Today I'm going to be using this beautiful stamp set called Garden Shed. It's available in the Spring Summer catalogue and I'm going to be colouring it using the Stampin Blends. So first of all, I just need to ink my stamp. I'm just using black memento ink for this. Just going to stamp it onto just some Whisper White cardstock. It's quite a nice detailed stamp this, so you can get some really nice shading in it. So once that's stamped, I'm going to be using the Stampin Blends, as I say, and for something a little bit different, I'm going to be using Pretty Peacock, which I think will add quite a nice colour to the show. So first of all, if I show you the pens, if you're not familiar with them, they have two ends. They have a brush end and a fine tipped end. You could use either or, and it depends on what I'm doing as to which end I use generally. I would say I'd probably use the fine tip end more than I do the brush end. They come with a dark and light of each colour. So I'm going to start off first of all with this little piece up here. Now, with Stampin' Blend, everyone has the way they like to use them. Some people like to start with the dark colour and then they'll add the light, and some people like to start with the light and add the dark. Again, it depends on what I'm doing. I have the tendency to use the dark first, use the light, and then I'll go in again with the dark just to add a little bit more detail. So I tend to use my blends in sort of either a sort of stroking motion like this, or when I want to blend them, I tend to do more of a circular motion. So you can see the colours coming together. Not straight away, you will find the colours don't blend fully. So that's where you just need to do a little bit of work, just add in some layers. Now you can see it's starting to blend. So I'm just going to go back in with my darker colour now. And this is where I tend to use more flicking type motions, because it enables you to add a bit finer detail. And then again, I'm just going back in with my light one just to blend that through a bit more. See? And what I tend to do as well is now to leave that to dry. It will change colour slightly when it dries, so then you can go back in and add some more detail if you want to. So again, I'm starting with the dark where there'll be a shadow. So here there'll be a shadow from the actual roof element. And what I'm doing is, because I want to blend these colours together, I'm going to add my darken top and bottom, and then I'm going to go back over with my light to fill in any gaps. Again, just by adding layers, the colours start to blend really well together. And then again, I'm just going to go in with a little bit more dark. And it's best, if you can, when you get to this stage, to use the dark and then the light immediately afterwards, because by using it immediately afterwards, it's still wet. So you're going to get a better blend. When you have pieces that have, like this has got all the hat and the spade, etc. up against here, because that's you're not going to be able to get a complete flow. What I would tend to do is to actually start with my light one on this occasion, because if I go into dark, I'm not going to be able to add too much detail. So I like to go in and lay a layer of light, and by doing that it means that I can go in and add the darkness when I want to. Okay, so I've zoomed in a bit now so you can see a bit clearer what I'm doing. I've added a light layer across this whole area here, as you can see. It just makes it so that I've got a base to work on. So I'm then going to take my dark colour and I'm going to start adding some darker highlights to it. So I'm going to start up this top corner. Because it's a corner, obviously it would have a bit of a shadow, and again I'm using that flicking motion that I talked to you about, and I'm going to just use the circular motion now just to try and blend that in a little bit. As you add extra layers even of the light, it will also create more shadow for you anyway, but obviously you can add as much or little as you like. I'm also going to add a slightly darker layer here because this was obviously the overhang of the shed roof, so that's going to obviously have a bit of shadow as well. And again, go in with my light pen. You'll notice as you add the light, it will actually lift part of the dark. So if you do go in a little bit dark somewhere, you can add a little bit more with the light just to lift it slightly. But the whole idea is that it obviously blends together. It does take a little bit of work, and you'll probably find that you have to keep going backwards and forwards over different areas to create your shadows, but that's the beauty of blend pens. So again, I'm just adding a little bit more here. I add a little bit of darkness on the edge, just where it would go around the corner. It would naturally have a slightly darker edge to it. When I go in to add my detail for the tools and stuff, I might actually change medium and go on to the stamping markers. So don't be afraid to mix mediums, because you know, they're all there to be used. So you can just add as much or as little as you want. And the reason I'd possibly use the markers for the tools, or some of the tools, is the fact that they're so small. So although the fine tip on the blend pen is actually very fine, sometimes it's not quite fine enough just to get that final detail. Just going to add a little bit of dark around my spade here, in between. Sometimes it's nice just to leave a little bit more contrast as opposed to a real blend, because sometimes you need what I call white space. So it's not actually white, but it's lighter again. Now in the blends we do have like a white corrector pen which we can use, but it does remove the colour, it almost bleaches it, so you do have to be a little bit careful. As I say, if you want to add a little bit more colour without going too dark, you just add an extra layer of the light. I think I'm going to let that dry for a minute, and then I can always go back in and add a little bit more, as I say. Although I am going to put a bit more darker just up in that top corner. Again, using that flicking motion just helps it blend, but it's not too much. Sometimes when you look back at work, you can see this is freshly done, so it is a little bit slightly bit darker. So once this has dried like this, then obviously it will lift a little bit more. So I'm going to do the same on this side. I'm going to add the light first, and I'm just very carefully sort of going around the outline of the pots and the bushes. Don't worry too much if you lose a bit of detail on the bushes, because the nature of this stamp is that colours are going to blend together. So you know, don't worry too much. You will lose a bit of detail on things like the tools, but that's where I say we can use the markers afterwards to actually add a bit more detail. I'm just colouring in this area. So I'm going to again add a little bit of dark on this side, because it's obviously turning the corner, so it would naturally have a bit of a darker shadow. Also, with a lot of these stamps, we have you can see there's like hash marks, so they would naturally be a slightly darker area. So you know, they're quite useful for you to see sort of where some of the darker areas are. So I'm just going around the other corner just to blend it fully. That's it. And I'm going to add a little bit dark under the overhang of the roof. Again, just doing light and dark, just to put it all together really. Okay, and I'm going to add again a little bit of dark around the edge of my pots and also the bush. So don't be afraid to add more layers if you're not quite happy sort of where it is. The way I'm looking at this shed, I think this side would be quite a bit darker than the other, just for the way the angle's taken, so I'm not afraid to add a bit more colour to it. Okay, I think I'm going to let that dry. Okay, so next I would do the door, just to fill in everything here, and then I would move on to the roof. So I'm going to do those and then I'll come back and show you how they're looking.